Welcome to Counterpoint. I'm Tanya Granick-Allen. Since Russia invaded Ukraine, many cities have been devastated, millions of refugees have to be resettled, and tens of thousands are reported dead. It seems on one hand, the entire world is wrapped up in this conflict, and yet on the other, many seem to have relegated this conflict to the back of their mind. But what happens with Russia and Ukraine will have major consequences throughout the world. Already, we are seeing the price of resources like oil increase. Russia is, after all, the third largest oil producer in the world, and we have seen access to Russian natural gas threatened. Russia accounts for 41% of all natural gas imports to the EU, with even some countries almost exclusively depending on that Russian gas. And of course, there is the humanitarian crisis, and it's expected during any war when there's large civilian populations. As of September, there are more than 7.4 million Ukrainian refugees across Europe. 81% intend to return home to reunite with their families. But is that possible with the war still raging on? What will there be when they do return home? Will their homes even still be standing? Joining us now to help unpack the Russian-Ukraine war is Dr. Alistair Edgar, Associate Professor of Political Science at Wilfrid Laurier University, with cross-appointment to the Balsillie School of International Affairs. Thank you, Dr. Edgar, for coming on today. I really appreciate your time in helping us unpack this very complicated issue. So it has been several months since, in a few months, it'll be almost a year since Russia invaded Ukraine. And many thought that Russia initially would pummel Ukraine very quickly, but the Ukrainians have very valiantly fought back. Was this surprising to you?
The Ukrainian resistance?
Yes.
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that I'm sure everybody thought at the time that Russia might take Kyiv, might take government institutions, and indeed, that's what they were planning in quite rapid order. I think within 2 to 3 weeks, when that was clearly not taking place, then it started to look like the lightning strike plan was unraveling for Putin. So by that time, and the response from Zelensky, his famous, "I don't need a ride, I need ammunition," all that sort of stuff in the background. By that time, it looked like this was going to be extended more. I still didn't think it would be ongoing nearly a year later.
Yes, it has definitely been quite a conflict, and I think many around the world are surprised, especially many in Canada, that this is still waging on. And again, we have short memories in this country, or many people do, and it's a natural thing with humans. Do we recall, was there ever a stated reason as to why Russia invaded Ukraine? Has that motive since changed?
Yeah, I think, Putin has a stated reason. I think at the same time, his stated reasons need to be taken with a sack of salt. His stated reasons were NATO encroachment or NATO enlargement, and talk about denazifying Ukraine. And those were his official reasons or excuses, but he has in other places talked about wanting to reassert or reconnect the old Russian Empire, the Soviet Union, or even the pre-Soviet Union Russian Empire, and he's talked about Ukraine's non-existence as a separate people and as a separate state. So he has a range of motives depending on who you ask on what day.
And with respect to the NATO expansion, because that seemed to definitely dominate the airways when there was discussion as to was that an impetus as to why they came in? Was that a provocation? Where do things sit with NATO expansion since the start of this conflict?
Well, interestingly, in that sense, what Putin has achieved is the exact opposite of what he said he wanted. Because since the invasion, both Finland and Sweden have applied for membership of NATO, and both were not NATO members previously. Finland, of course, had experienced an invasion from the old Soviet Union in the late 1930s. So now NATO expansion is actually continuing apace with 2 potential new members, both having applied for accession to NATO. Obviously, the Ukraine case continues on, the war is going on, and we will see after the conflict what the status of Ukraine will be. But yeah, NATO enlargement has actually sped up because of Putin's invasion.
My goodness. Okay, well, we're going to pick up this issue right when we return from this commercial break. Please stick around.